Keep coming.
Let's find out. Are we ready to go? Okay.
1, 2.
Yes. Meeting is being recorded. Okay, lovely. Today's daf is when we're and Beis. We're going to start about 4 or 5 lines up on the bottom of Nun Aleph on the Beis Tanur Rabbanan. So this first part here is going to be talking about who we should and should not accept pikdonos from, why, and what to do if we accidentally or intentionally did take a pikadon from them. Tanur Rabbanan, pikdonos lo min hanoshim v'lo min avodim v'lo min hatinokos. We don't accept a piece of collateral from women or avadim or from minors. Why? Rashbam explains because women might have stolen from their husbands, avadim from their masters, and ketanim are too young and irresponsible to take responsibility for a pikadon. So now what happens if you took? So kabal mina isha, kibal mina isha, what if you took from a woman? Well, who do you give it back to then when it's time? Yashul isha. You should give it back to the woman. Rashbam explains because we don't assume that a woman is a gazlanis. We don't assume that she's stealing from somebody who properly owns the property. Being Mesa, now what happens if she's dead? Who do you give it back to? Yashilala. Then in that case, you give it back to her husband. Kibamina Eved. What happens? We're at the bottom of Nun Aleph Amud Beis. Today's daf is Amud Beis. What happens if Kibamina Eved? What if you did accept a pikadon from an Eved? And it's time to return it, Yachshul Eved, then you do in fact give it back to the Eved, the Imays, but if it's time to come to give the Pikadon back, and the Eved is no longer alive, Yachshul Rabo, you give it back to the master. Why? Says the Rashbam, look at the last Rashbam, the Komashikana Eved Kana Rabo, because anything that the Eved acquires, the master automatically has bias to, and therefore we give the Pikadon back to the master. Top of Nun Beis Amud Aleph, Kibamina Katan. What happens if you accept a pikadon from a katan? Then who do you give it? Who do you give it back to? So the Gemara says you don't give it back to the katan right away. Yasta los tegula. We're on the top of the Beis Amud Aleph top line. You give it to him as a segula, and the Gemara will explain what that means. But basically, you hold it in trust for him for later. Ve'im meis. Now, what happens if the katan law later passes away before you have a chance to return the pikadon? Yachzur liyorsha. Then you give it to the yorshim of the inheritors of that katan. The kulan she'amru b'shas, brothers, parents, whoever it is, grandparents, depending on who's still alive. The kulan she'amru b'shas misasin shel ploni hein. Now, if a woman, an eved, or a katan, at the time of their passing, says, by the way, that pikadon actually belongs to so and so, some third party, and therefore should not go to the yorshim. Yasa kipirusha. If at the time of their death they say, by the way, that pikadon belongs to whoever, it goes to that whoever. It goes to that third party. The imlav yas, the imlav. Now, what if they don't specify who it goes to? Yasa perush the perusha. You give an explanation to their explanation. Now, that's a very cryptic statement. The Rashbam himself gives 2 or 3 explanations of what this means. We're going to go with the first one because he rejects the second one, and we're not going to get into the third one because Ein Kan Makom Laharich. What the Rashbam says this means is the following. Look at the Rashbam immediately to the right. What if you don't believe the wife, Eved or Katan, in their statement that it belongs to so and so, and really what you think is that they're just embarrassed and don't want to be seen as a gazlan, so they've said, "Oh, it really belongs to so and so," when in fact you don't believe that that's the case. The Rashbam says what you really think is that it actually belongs back with the yorshim. So then, according to this explanation of the Rashbam, the line of the Gemara being loud, that if they are not believed, you give an explanation for their explanation and you return it to the yorshim. And in a similar case, the Bisu de Rabba Bar Chana, the wife of Rabba Bar Chana at the time of her passing, Amrahani Kipe de Marta Ovne Barta, that she had these earrings or some sort of jewelry that she claimed belonged to Marta and Marta's grandchildren. So then what happened? So then the Yorshim of Mrs. Rabbi Bar Chana wanted to know who gets these earrings. Do they in fact belong to the family of Marta, or do they belong to the Yorshin? So they went before Rav, who said to them the following: if you believe her that they belong to the family of Marta, do what she says. The imlo, asa perush lepirusha. And if you don't believe her, do a perush for her perush. And again, as we learned in the Rashbam, that means you Yorshim get to keep it for yourselves. And there are some say that Rav said the following to them: if you estimate that what she's saying is plausible, the Rashbam gives two explanations for what this means. It means that either, number one, if the family of Marta is wealthy and is wealthy enough that they would be loaning out expensive jewelry to the wife of Rabbi Bar Marta, then no problem. The other explanation, says the Rashbam.
Wait, they're using it as a kind of for a loan.
Who said it's a loan?
Oh.
Maybe they just gave it to her for safekeeping. Right? So if they're wealthy enough that they can part with an expensive piece of jewelry and either lend it or have it for safekeeping by Mrs. Rabbi Bar Chana, no problem. The other possibility the Rashbam explains of what Iyamidallah means is that if Mrs. Rabbi Bar Chana is herself important enough that another wealthy family would give her a piece of jewelry to safeguard, then you would give it back to that family. The Elo, and if that's not the case, and if you don't estimate that either of those possibilities is plausible, Asa Perush Pirusha, and the Yorshin get to keep it. Now, we said earlier that Minakatan Yasa Lo Segula, that if it's time to return the Pikadon of the Katan, you don't give it back to the Pikadon. What should you do? The Gemara says, make it a Segula. What does that mean? My Segula? Rav Chisda Amar Sefer Torah. Means you use that money to buy your Sefer Torah, something that they'll have forever. Because nobody ever gets rid of a Sefer Torah. And Rabbi Rav Huna Amar Dikla De'achamine Tamri. Nope, you buy instead a tree that will give peros, literally peros, for many, many years to come, and that the Katan will not lose his investment. So as we got toward the end of our Mishnah, that Mishnah, by the way, which we're going to refer back to, is a Membez and an Aleph. The Mishnah said that a father and son cannot have chazaka in each other's property. Below the av b'nichsei ben, below laben b'nichsei hav. Amar Rav Yosef, afilu choku. So we have machlokas on Rav Yosef and Rava. According to Rav Yosef, that this din that they cannot have chazaka, father and son cannot have chazaka in each other's property, applies even if the son is no longer dependent on the father. Afilu choku. Even if they've divided, they are not interdependent and they live completely separate lives. They still cannot, because of their warm feelings between the two of them, and maybe they'll be mochel on each other, they cannot have a chazaka. Rava Amar, absolutely not. Choku, look, that if they've divided everything, this din of the Mishnah does not apply, and they are like any other people, and they can have chazakas in each other's property. Rav Yirmiyah Midifti said, Avar Rav Papi Uvda. Rav Papi paskin this way, Choku, look. And he said that if they are living separate, non-dependent lives, then this din of not having chazaka does not apply, and they can have chazaka in each other. Kirava, just like Rabbi Paskin. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Listen to this chain of Masorah. Rav Menachmen bar Yitzchak said, "Ishtai li Rav Chia mehormis Ardashich." Rav Chia from Hormis Ardashich told me, "The Ishtai le Rav Acha bar Yaakov." That Rav Acha bar Yaakov told him, Mishmeder of Nachman bar Yaakov, in the name of Rav Nachman bar Yaakov, Chokulo, just like Rava, that if they live independent lives, the father and son, right, this din of not having a chazaka does not apply. The hilchasa, just like that, Choku lo. And Tanya Miacham, we have a brisa that confirms this. Ben Shechal Ishto Shemitzkarsha, that a child no longer dependent on his father, and a wife who was divorced, Harahin Kashar Kal Adam, they are like any other person, and you can have chazaka in their property. Itmar. This is the case of a brother. The Rashbam posits that possibly it's an eldest brother who is serving as the executor of an estate for his now deceased father. He had shtari mecher, which are onos according to the Rashbam, and shtaros, which are shtari halva'a, written only in his name. So now the obvious question is, are they his? And does he own the loan and own the mecher? Or is it in his name on behalf of his siblings, the other Yorshim? So his claim is, the brother, this executor says, hey, all these sharos in my name, Shari Mecher, Shari Ava, they're mine. I own those loans or I own those property because they fell to me from my mother's father, meaning he had a different mother than the other siblings, than his half siblings from his father. Amar Rav, here's the machlokas.
So he himself was named.
He himself
was named as the holder of the star.
So that's a machlokas. He's the executor of his father's estate.
Okay.
But he has a different mother than everybody else. And he claims, by the way, all these sharos in my name only belong to me. They're in my separate bank account. This is not shared community Yoresh property. And I own it. I own them all. So the question is, who has to prove who owns those sharos? Rav, according to Rav.
Well, his is the only name on there.
Okay.
Well, wait.
His is the only
I'm
name.
trying to understand, why does the father have a star? But it's his son's name.
The son is the executor of an estate.
Okay, I understand that.
Right. So these shtaros now exist if Ruvain is the executor of Yaakov Avinu's estate, the executor of Yaakov Avinu's estate. That means that he's got the legal authority to sort of deal with the estate.
I understand.
Right. So now,
Rashbam says basically that the documents that he purchased the property. The brother purchased it. It's in the brother's name because the brother purchased the property.
right. So the question is, with whose money? Did he buy it with his own independent money in Ruvain's private bank account? Or did he buy it on behalf of the Yorshim? So the machlokas now is, who's got the burden of proof as to the ownership of the property or the loan indicated in those shtaros? Does the brother, the executor who claims, these are mine, I got them from my mother's side of the family, does he have to prove that they're his? Or do the other brothers have to say, well, absolutely not. We're going to prove to you that you don't own that property free and clear. They're in your name, but it's on all of our behalf as executor of our father's estate. They have the same father and different mothers. So that's the machlokas. Amar Rav, Allah lahavi raya. Rav says the executor, this brother, he has to bring the raya. Shmuel Amar al ha'achin lahavi raya. Shmuel says that nope, the brothers who do not have their names on the shtaros, they have to bring the raya. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, and this is a very perplexing statement that leads to a very perplexing halacha. Modali Abba, which is Rav's real name. Rav was referred to Rav the same way Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was referred to as Rebbe. Rav was an honorific. His name was actually Abba. She'im meis al ha'achin lahavi raya. According to Shmuel, Rav agrees that listen carefully, if the brother who is the executor of his father's estate passes away, according to Shmuel, even Rav would agree that not the brother's individual Yorshim in his own line of descendants, but the remaining brothers have to bring a raya. Now, Rav Papa has a bam kasha on this. Maski Rav Papa. How can you possibly say that? We are at the very bottom of Nun Beis Amud Aleph. Last two lines. How can you possibly say, Shmuel, that the Yorshim of the oldest brother are protected more than their father would have been? Look at the Rashbam, about 10 lines up. Dibra Maskil Klum Te'ina. Bit me up. Ilu Hayavi and Kayam. If the brother who's the executor of the state was still alive, Hainu Machzikin Amam Biyad Achin. The brothers would have had the first rights to that property. Achi Yavi Raya She'ena Shelahed. Right? According to, again, we're in Rav's opinion. Shmuel said that even Rav would agree to this. And Rav Papa says, what are you talking about? The brother would never have the automatic rights to that property. The brothers would. So if the burden of proof when the brother was still alive was if the executor brother was still alive, the burden of proof would be on him. How can it be that when he's gone, the burden is suddenly on the brothers and the Yorshim his Yorshim had more rights than his siblings do? Can't be. And the Gemara continues, that Rava had a case where he took scissors and svarim of agarka miyasmi below raya. He took it from Yisomin without any raya from the Bailim whatsoever. Kidvar masrim lahashul alaskir, just like any common small product, small item that is normally borrowed and sold between friends and family and neighbors. Again, skip to the last two lines of the Rashbam. She'im amravi and lekuchein biyadi in the middle of the line. That if the father said, I own these, I bought them, alav lahavi raya, afa yasomin alayim lahavi raya. So then why wouldn't the yasomin, and again, just to clarify what yasomin we're talking about, we're talking about the children of the now deceased executor of these yasomin's grandfather's estate. I know this is a little confusing, but the Rav Papa's question is, how can Shmuel say that Rav would ever agree that the brothers of the executor need to bring the raya, when the executor himself would never have had automatic rights to that? Can't possibly be the case. Turn the page. So just like we said that these things that are easily traded between people and lent and borrowed, then you can't claim chazaka to them. So the Gemara concludes kasha. Now, we don't have time to go into the whole thing. The Rashbam has a major problem with the fact that we paskin like this Maimer of Shmuel, because the Gemara says kasha. Now, the Gemara distinguishes between kasha and tiyufta. Tiyufta is, we uproot what you just said, we've completely slugged you up, you're gone. Kasha, we can still paskin that way. The Rashbam has a major problem with that mahalach and the fact that we paskin that way.
Kasha is there's still
kasha. It's difficult,
right,
but we still paskin, but we're going to still paskin like it. Tiyufta, it's so bad. What you said is so wrong. You're completely slugged, and we don't paskin like you at all. You're gone. We don't hold like you at all, and your opinion is completely wiped out. So it's worth seeing this Rashbam inside. He argues with the whole thing. He does not like this psak, but he says, nope, Rabbi Nechalael paskins that way. What can I do? But it doesn't make any sense to him. Okay. Weiter in Shas, Amar Reb Chisda. This next part's going to go very quickly. Third line. Lo shanu eladein chalukim be'isasan. When do we say the opinion of Rav that the executor brother needs to prove on his own that the shtaros are his? That's only when they do everything else together. If they're sharing meals, they're sharing a house, they're sharing a chutzah, and all of a sudden the brother comes and says, "Oh, we're sharing everything, but these shtaros in my name, they're mine only." That's when he has to bring a raya. About chalukim b'isasan. But if they keep all of their bank accounts already separate, he can say, look, we already keep everything else separate. This part is from my bank account. This is my own investments. These are separate too. Now, raya b'ma. Now, when Rav says that this executor brother needs to bring a raya, what are we talking about? Rabba Amar raya be'edim. So Rabba says he's got to bring edim. That these shtaros, shtari mecher, shtari halva, actually belong to this executor brother. Like Shesha Amar raya became a shtar. Shesha says, nope, he has to bring the shtar to Beis Din, and Beis Din has to be Mekayim the shtar. Amar le Rabba le Rav Nachman. I love this question. Rabba says to Rav Nachman, Harav HaShmuel. Ana Manalav Machlokas Rav and Shmuel. Who needs to bring a raya? Harabba Harav Sheshes. Now when we are on the base, we have a Machlokas in Rav Sheshes. That whoever needs to bring the raya, what raya do they bring? How do you paskin? Harav Sheshes, Markaman Svirale. Rav Sheshes, who do you paskin like? Amarle, Ana Masnisa Yadana. I have a brisa that clarifies for me exactly what to do. Titania. This is our case. We have an oldest brother who is the executor of his father's estate on behalf of his siblings. He's got shtari mecher and shtari helva that are in his name only. And he claims, potentially rightfully so, these belong to me. And they fell to me in Yerusha from my mother's father, who is not the mother of the rest of his siblings. They were half siblings from the father only. Allah lahavi raya, just like Rav, the Brisa says, it's on that executor brother, he's got to bring the raya. Bechein, a similar case. Ha'isha, she no says You have the woman of the house, she's handling all the business of the house. And she has shtari mecher, shtari halva that are in her name only. And she says, these are mine. These came to me in an inheritance from my paternal or maternal grandfather. She has to bring a raya that they don't belong to her husband. So Gemara wants to know, what does the second memra mean? The second part of the brisa of V'cheina Isha. What's the chiddush? I should have known that from the first part, that she should have to bring a raya. Why are we
Does the
singling out?
husband bring raya?
What?
That is his to her? Vice versa to the husband. Because he has to bring raya if she claims that it's his.
No, because everything that is hers, he already owns, or at least has rights to. So she has a bigger burden of proof.
Oh, then
because she's claiming it's hers alone. By height, says who?
I brought it to the marriage.
Maybe. Prove it. If you brought it to the marriage, prove it. So Gemara wants to know, what's the chiddush by the wife? Because we might say that a woman, she enjoys the praise and the reputation of being somebody who works on behalf of Yisomim, right? That's why she has this pikadon. And that's why she's holding on to it. And for sure it's not the husband's. Gemara says, Kamash Malan, no, it's possible that she stole from her husband, and she needs to bring the proof that it really belongs to her and not to some Yisomim. Okay. Now, at the end of the Mishnah, we just went through 10 blot of Gemaras that have to do with a 3-year chazaka. And the Gemara said at the end of that Mishnah, 3 lines from the bottom of the page, what are we talking about here? B'machzik. That all of these cases are a case of chazaka when you sat for 3 years on somebody else's land and then you claim it's yours. Then the Mishnah finished, but if you gave a gift, brothers that divided property, or you're a machnik in the nechasim of a ger, because a ger has no yorshim and therefore it's automatically after, or if you fixed a fence or locked the door, whatever, that's a chazaka. The Gemara wants to know, 2 dots in the middle. Wait. You're telling me that all these cases of the 3 years, the last 10 blot, those aren't considered chazaka, but all the stuff you just listed, fixing the fence and dividing the property, that is a chazaka? The Gemara says no. The Mishnah is cryptic and missing some words, and here's what it means. When all these cases, all the 3-year cases, when does that chazaka work? When there's a taina against your chazaka. If Eddie says, that's mine, and I'm saying, what are you talking about? I've been sitting here for 3 years and you haven't said a word. That's when that kind of chazaka works. The seller says, I never said it. What are you talking about? And the lokeach says, lakachti. No, I bought it from you, and I'll prove it to you. I've been sitting here for 3 years and you haven't said a word. Aval chazaka she'eni mataina. What about a chazaka where there's no counterclaim? Kigon. No sin matana. I gave you a gift. Or brothers who are dividing a Yerusha. Or somebody who claims the nechasim of a deceased convert. The Bach adds in a word there, that the only reason he's claiming chazaka is to prove that he owns it. He's not using it as a counterclaim to somebody else. He's just demonstrating, this is mine. So how does he do that? No'al, if he locks the door. Gadar, put up a fence. Paratz, or broke the fence, broke through to do some kind of work. Kolshu, any action like that, harezu chazaka, and the chazaka is immediate. Tani Rav Yoshaya b'kedushin to be Levi. Now, Rav Yoshaya, in his own Tosefta, Rav Yoshaya said, in the version of the Tosefta on Kedushin from the Beis Medrash of Levi, the following: No gadar paratz kolshu b'fanav harezu chazaka. That if you do any of these actions, lock the door, fix the fence, whatever, in front of the former owner, it's an immediate chazaka. So Gemara says, wait a minute. Right, but hold on, we'll see right now. The fun of inch, little fun of flow.
Wait. He was there for 3 years already?
Nope, no 3 years.
He was not there.
I go into your backyard and I put a bolt on the fence and you don't say a word. Your backyard is now mine. Instantly, says the Mishnah on Benbeis. Instantly. The Gemara's clarified.
Because
if I go to your house
go ahead.
and I bust through your fence and I start doing construction and you don't say anything, it's mine. It's mine. Now I have enough to worry about with my own house. I don't want you.
I hear you.
Right? But the Mishnah said I'm in Bezim.
Wow. That's enough, but that's what's not gonna
But this is not a 3-year mecha chazaka. This is I'm taking care of this property chazaka. You didn't say anything. The Mishnah says it clearly. Men Bezim and Aleph at the bottom. So now the Gemara wants to know mashma that he bought it, or it was a matana, or it fell to him in Yerusha, or whatever it was. So b'fun of in, shalom b'fun of lo. On this Tosefta of Rabbi Yoshaya, we say, wait. Only in front of him? What about not in front of him? Rabbi says, here's what we mean. If I do it right in front of you, I don't need to wait for you to say, go, make a chazaka, enjoy yourself, it's yours. Top of Minim Gimel, Shelo b'fanav. However, if I do these things not in front of you, go, you can go take it now, it's all yours. But you don't need 3 years, you just need a maisa that shows that it's yours. Because why am I going to invest time and money in something that isn't? Why am I going to go fix your fence? I got to fix my own. But if I'm spending time refurbishing your property, must be mine, or I really like you. Must be mine. Okay, I'd come to base. We're back together Sunday. What time do you meet Sunday?
6:45. Well, unless you tell us.
You tell, wait. He's right, you tell us.
Okay, so let me.
Short topic.
Yeah, I don't know how hard they are. So let me prepare.
Send it WhatsApp
You know what?
Saturday night.
I'll send. Well, I'm not on the chat. So I'll send it to. I'll send it to
No,
you.
send it to Randy, I won't be your son.
I
not
think
gonna
most
hear
of
Sunday,
most
you
of the
know,
people like to come to.
Send it to Randy.
So let's do 7 o'clock.
At your summer house.
I've got Sunday and Monday. 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, and we'll get as far as we can. Okay, have a good Shabbos.
Exactly.